This is a PvP build for the new Warrior Elite spec, Paragon. Greetings gamers, Kentaro here. This build is basically Core Warrior on steroids. Its strengths are big damage,
now that's a lot of damage,
big might stacks, and big crits. It's quite effective in PvP, so if that sounds like something you're interested in, stay tuned. But before I do that, please remember to like and subscribe. It's a free way to support the channel, and I'd really appreciate it. Now, onto the build video. This is the full build for the Paragon duelist spec that I've been playing a little bit of in PvP recently. So let's start with defense. We're taking Call the Weak, your burst skills, inflict weakness on enemies, and you get more damage on enemies that have weakness. The other two traits I don't think are that useful. Dog and March isn't really that strong. Shield Master, you could take this, but you only have one block in this build. Adrenal Health. So this procs not just off your burst skills, but it will also proc off your chant abilities. So this is really easy to keep up. This is a really strong sustain trait. Resilient Roll, so gain resistance when you dodge. The other two traits here aren't really useful for our build, so we're just going to stick with this. Hardened Armor, gain resolution when you block or are struck by a critical hit. So just nice little bit of damage reduction. And Cleansing Ire. So this is going to be one of our main sources of removing conditions. So every time we use a burst skill, it will also remove a condition for every bar of adrenaline. So because our burst skills only use one bar, it is a bit limited to that. However, you will be proccing this when you cast your Chants, because they also count as burst skills. So your condition cleanse is pretty good. Next, we have Discipline. So Discipline, Warrior Sprint, I mean, this is kind of essential for a lot of Warrior builds, so we're not going to even discuss that. Weapon Swapping, always good. Destruction of the Empowered. You could switch this for Brawler's Recovery if you needed even more Condition Cleanse, but I think we're pretty good with Cleansing Ire. So we're just going to stick with this, get a little bit more damage for boons on our enemies, since unlike Spellbreaker, we don't have Boon Strip on this build. Versatile Power, gain might on Weapon Swap. Burst skills, gain reduced recharge. And finally, Axe Mastery. So this is a little different from the traditional, discipline build for warriors. Burst Mastery was kind of a staple of a lot of PvP builds for a very long time. But because we're using Axe main hand with this, and it's giving us a lot of damage, we're going to stick with this. The ferocity you gain from this, you gain some ferocity for having an axe equipped. And you also gain ferocity even on your alternate weapons. So when I have Greatsword out, I still gain a ferocity bonus. It does give a nice bonus damage to all of our critical hits, not just axe hits. And finally, the new trait line, Paragon. So this one is, I think Call to Action is kind of the best one right now, because you gain motivation when you enter combat. And if none of your refrains are active, you automatically activate Refrain of Chant of Action. So what that means is you gain, after activation, continually applies boons to allies while removing motivation every interval. This effect lasts until you run out of motivation stacks or another chant is activated. So you will still need to cast the burst, the actual chant a portion of this, but it does give you a little bit of motivation. The other one I see being used is Liberating Liaise. So Chant of Freedom applies super speed to allies when activated. The thing with that is it has quite a long cooldown. Like in PvP, in Conquest maps, it does give you the benefit of being able to move around the map a little faster. But I've just been sticking with this. I find this is a bit more consistent and a bit more useful in and has a bit more frequency of use. Even though it's like the benefit of this is really only when you start combat. Neither one are like really good. They're just kind of okay, but I think this one is a little better. And then next we have gain concentration, so gain motivation when you swap weapons, which is kind of important. Strengthening stanzas. So this is going to be your go-to for this. The other ones, this is healing based, and this one, your echoes trigger a second time. So that's if you're slotting your Paragon utility skills. This build, I'm trying this one out. I'm not really completely sold on it yet, but I'll get into that in a minute. So with Strengthening Stanzas, your Chant of Action, gain 10% damage. Chant of Recoup, gains damage reduction. And Chant of Freedom grants 50% move speed. I don't think this stacks with this. So I think you're capped on move speed already, but we're really more concerned about like the extra damage and the damage reduction for your 1 and 2 chants here. Unyielding resolve, strike and condition damage dealt to you is reduced for each point of motivation you have. So when you have 10, you gain 10% reduced damage, which is pretty strong. Last one here, our Grandmaster trait, Brisk Pacing, was the one they changed after the beta. They updated it to gain flat damage bonus for how much motivation you have. So 20% damage when you have 10 stacks is pretty big. There's really no reason to use either of these for like a DPS build like this. And there's not much to it. It's very, very straightforward. So that's the build. Those are the traits. And next, let's discuss the utility skills. So our heal, mending, removes condies, gives you protection, and is a pretty strong heal. This is a staple in a lot of warrior builds. Nothing really new there. Bull's charge, nothing else to really say. It's your stun, it's your evade, and you use this to set up a lot of combos. Shake it off. So short duration stun break with condition cleanses. I think this is probably still the best one. Still better than the alternatives for being Paragon. This one is your flex spot. So find their weakness. I've been playing with a little bit. It has a nice long range of 1200, deals a little bit of damage, and it grants 10 stacks of vulnerability on your enemies in a kind of an AoE splash effect. It's pretty strong. It has a very low cooldown. The cast time is kind of slow. I have been interrupted on this enough times that it's very easy to tell what it looks like. I'll just cast it really quickly here. So, right, it's kind of easy to spot, but I think it's pretty good. You could just go with Dolyak Signet if you want to be a bit more tanky, or with the tried and true balance stance for better survival and a stronger, longer cooldown. And then we're just going to go with Rampage. I just like Rampage because it's just more damage. You could go with Signet of Rage if you're having problems gaining adrenaline. And I have seen people use a Banner as well if you want to go with more of a utility like team fighting style setup. Any of these are good. Your skills are going to be off cooldown pretty frequently with Axe setup and reduced cooldown for that. So it's up to you, personal preference. And then let's get into the gear. So we're going with Berserker Amulet. I wouldn't really recommend using anything except this. The benefit of this build is you have high burst and consistent damage, and your Fighter Rune just for some extra toughness. The relic here there is some flexibility. I like using this because it's like a weaker version of Aggressive Onslaught. So gain quickness when you disable a foe. Aggressive Onslaught, the duration of quickness is longer, but this is still pretty good. Your axe skills come out pretty fast, so I would recommend, if you see quickness up, saving it for something like 100 Blades. It's just a nice to have kind of thing. You could also go with evasion, so more vigor. You gain vigor when you evade an attack, so you just get more dodges and more resistance uptime. You could also go with Relic of the Mistburn. So what you get here, I've used this in builds before, more might stacks. So when you have Chant of Action up, you'll be gaining might, and then with Relic of Mistburn, you'll be getting extra might stacks. So it's a little easier to maintain high stacks of might with this, and you gain 5% critical strike chance. Either more damage or faster skills. It's kind of up to you. Those I think are the best ones. I mean, you could go Relic of the Daredevil if you want more consistent crits. Then you could switch this for something else. Yeah, so Greatsword, I just stick with Sigil of Intelligence for crits when you swap to this weapon, and Energy for Axe Shield. This is kind of a flex spot as well. So Sigil of Exploitation, deal 5% extra damage to targets below 50% health, and your Sigil of Cleansing. These are kind of both flexible with this setup because you have pretty good Condi cleanse, so it'll really just depend on the team you're fighting against and your own team comp. But yeah, that's the setup. Like I said, there's some flexibility here with like your runes and relics. Most of this is pretty set in stone. There's not really too much build diversity with this. There's like another build where you use strength instead of defense, but I think this is kind of better, especially for team fighting. You really want that extra survivability and sustain that you get with having defense. Next, I'll just quickly go over a few of the combos you can use with this. So unlike Spellbreaker, right, you don't have your glorious little AoE stun there. So you're going to have to rely on your Bull's Charge and your Shield Bash. So going to just open up with Blade Trail, rush in. So your adrenaline gain is a lot slower in Greatsword, so that's just something to be aware of. So I've got Chant of Action up because of the traits. I got no motivation, so I'm going to use my Chant of Action again just to get that up. Use my Arcing Slice. So I'll talk about the chants a little bit more. Right, so you get Fury and Might from this, so you're no longer dependent on having Arcing Slice up or using Cyclone Axe to gain Fury. You just use those whenever you need to or whenever you want to. If you have the time to like auto attack, Axe is definitely the way to go because you gain more adrenaline on it. So if you find that you are, low on adrenaline, you've cycled through a bunch of your skills, it might be better just to sit Axe for a bit until you get some adrenaline back up. You'll see it goes up pretty fast, whereas the attacks are much slower here. You don't really gain nearly as much adrenaline. Let's just pop, find the weakness. It's a nice vulnerability on there. So what are some combos that you can use? So, let's see. I've got Relic of Mistburn up right now. So let's just pretend that I still have Pirate Relic. So stun my enemy. And if that had quickness up, obviously 100 Blades would be going up a lot faster. And the whole time I've got Fury anyway. So, with some other warrior builds, people discuss using Arcane Slice first. So you get your Fury up. That's not really necessary with this. You could just go straight into 100 Blades when an enemy is stunned. Okay, let's get our motivation stacks up again. Classic warrior combination is Greatsword into Shield 4. So it cancels the animation for Whirlwind, and then you go into a stun on your other bar. So I'll just use this again here. Hopefully Shield 4 is up. It's not. So I would stun them, and you can get this out really quickly, and then go into an Eviscerate. And those two skills together will deal a ton of damage. And this is a 6.5 second cooldown, so it's up very frequently. Your Eviscerate is on a 5 second cooldown, so that's up very frequently. And the whole time you're doing these things, just make sure that you're using your Chant of Action to keep your motivation stacks high, because when that's up, you get brisk pacing and you get an extra 20% damage. So let's get our stacks up again. So you're going to be weapon swapping a lot just to keep your adrenaline high and to keep your motivation stacks high as well. And the other thing to keep in mind is that, Arcane Slice gains bonus damage for low health targets, and Eviscerate is a leap now. You want to make sure you use this in a smart way, though. Like if you're using it on targets that are moving, you could easily land short of it. So make sure you're using your Throw Axe for Cripple, keeping in mind that this is also gains bonus damage on low health targets. So you have a lot of abilities that gain like bonus damage on certain conditions. So just make sure that you're not missing out on some extra damage. Could be doing like really big burst on enemies. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, there's nothing too complicated really about Paragon. Its mechanics are pretty simple. I mean, most of the time when you're fighting, you're only going to be using Chant of Action on a consistent basis because it has the shortest cooldown by far. Chant of Recuperation, it grants Barrier, Vigor, and Regen when you're at higher motivation stacks. This is kind of like your survival tool. So if you're really getting pressured, you could just pop Chant of Recuperation and then, get away from enemies and start kiting. And the regen is only like a 2 second duration, so it really doesn't last that long. But just having something to like give you some extra survival, a little barrier, some regen, and then vigor, in case you're out of dodges, then could mean the difference between surviving a fight and getting killed. And then Chant of Freedom. When you have this up, you gain some pretty strong boons to yourself and your allies. Or if you have the extra adrenaline, you could use this for, when you're in conquest mode in PvP, from moving from one capture point to the next, or just to help you kite. That's kind of the main sort of purpose of that. But just keep in mind, like, you know, this has a 7-second cooldown, and this is a 26-second cooldown. So there's a pretty significant difference, right? You really don't want to waste this just to gain a little bit of whatever extra movement speed. And there's some pretty strong buffs here, like resolution, protection, and swiftness. You don't have a source of swiftness other than that in this build. Now that we understand the build and all of our skills, let's take a look at it in action, and I will give some commentary on some slow motion footage so you can get a closer look at how each fight plays out. So this first fight here is a team fight at mid on Temple. So let's take a look and see what happens. So I use my blade trail to open on them, and I just kind of wait here for my first chant to go off. So now I'm gaining might, I'm gaining fury. I use whirlwind to go in, and I switch to axe, and we're focusing down this amalgam pretty hard, so he's about to die. I use my eviscerate, and it actually misses because he was moving away from me, and he outranged me. But I managed to get him down. So nice big 11k 100 blades on him. So he's completely finished, and this fight is basically over. So we managed to isolate the enemy team away from each other and burst them down pretty well. This berserker here is not having a good time either. Another 11k 100 blades on him to finish him off. So this next clip is also a team fight. Things seem like they're in my favor at the beginning, and then they kind of get really chaotic when the fight shifts and moves down more into mid. And I'll show you what I'm talking about as I discuss the how it plays out. So I'm going up the ladder here, and I see there's a ritualist, and he's at low health, but he pops Shroud. There's an amalgam here that's low health. So I start chasing him. I see I've got my friend here behind me. I try and use my Bull's Charge, but he triggers an explosion and stuns me. Now the Ritualist, and I see a Mesmer is coming down here as well to help them. So the Amalgam is down, and the Ritualist are down now. So I got 3 down enemies, but I know that the Ritualist here has the most potential to res themselves, so I start focusing damage on them again. They use their fear on me, the engineer uses their pull on me, and I'm starting to take a lot of damage here because I got 3 downed enemies all DPSing me. So I pop my Chant 2, the one that gives me recuperation, and I use my heal, and thankfully I'm able to use my Arcing Slice on the 2 closest down targets, and my teammates come just in time to help me finish them all off. So this last fight here is also a team fight. So it starts at kind of like the middle area here. I'm chasing this amalgam. My teammate was the one that downed him. So he goes down, and I see this Mesmer here is starting to open up on my teammate. So I go after him. I go in with Bull's Charge. It goes off, but he goes invis. So I'm not really sure if my next attack hit him. So he's low health, so either my teammate or myself dealt some pretty good damage to him, so I'm going to chase this Mesmer. I see he's low health, so I switch to Axe, and I'd use my throw Axe, and I'm pretty sure I got him, but he went invis again. And then as I'm going across the bridge here, I see, yes, in fact, I did down him, so I go back down to finish him off. Leap in with Eviscerate, get a nice big 6.5k. And this amalgam has respawned, so he's back here. So I walk away, and then I about face, and then come back in with Bull's Charge and do my combo on him. And so he's very low, and he goes down pretty quick. Get my Chant up again to get 10 stacks of motivation, and finish him off with 100 blades. Yeah, I gotta take like a sick video and screenshots. I gotta make the thumbnail, and I gotta do like a cool intro here. So here we go. We'll do the chant. What's the vibe on this? I feel like this is like maybe Creed or something like. Can you take me higher? Yeah! Alright, that was sick. This is just straight bullying. This is a nice 3v1 on this ritualist here. It's absolutely destroyed, outplayed. Now we're gonna bully this Mesmer. I actually don't know if my stun went off because he went invisible. Okay, on to the next one. Berserker here. That's 2v1. Pretty sure we're gonna win this. Go Rampage just to make sure. Nice big crit. He's dead. And execute. Boom. That's teamwork right there. Okay, back on the Berserker again. We got a nice 3v1, 4v1. Dies in less than 1 second. The Amalgam's back here. Nice 3v1, guys. Just absolutely obliterated him. I get this Berserker again. Just slowly, casually DPSing him down. I go Rampage. Nice 8k crit on the dash. I waste all my CC trying to get this, trying to stop the res there, but he does get it off. No big deal. I wanted a fair fight anyway. Back to from 2v2 to 3v3. Nice big arcing slice down to both of them again. Easy. This Amalgam here is just getting bullied again. Nice big arcing slice crit. 10,000 damage on 100 blades. Let's see if we can go bully this Mesmer now. Oof, 8k eviscerate. Just me and the Guardian. Oh, I got 2v1 again. Now it's 2v2, fight's more interesting. Rampage again. Or boulder on him. Yeah, he's not getting out of that. Just punching him to death at this point. That Ritualist is trying his best, but it's not going to be enough. I think we actually win the match before this fight ends. Now we're just 3v1 bullying the Ritualist. That's okay, because Necromancers aren't people.